Welcome to World Builders Anvil, Season 2, Episode 9. Let's build a new world and call him George. Don't know where to start building your fantasy world?
Do you need more? Does it make sense?
Forget any worries and become a crafter of imagination.
This is the place where we will prime your mind.
Now, it's time to heat up the forge.
Break out the mithril ingots and hammer.
Welcome to the World Builders Anvil. I'm Jeffrey W. Ingram.
And I'm Michael Miller.
Let's sup from the muck of Java and build. Welcome back. Stuck on old cult classics as always. My name is Jeffrey W. Ingram.
And clean-faced, and I am burly-faced. I am Michael Miller. And I'm surprised you didn't say, let's build a new world and make him our best friend.
I skipped it to George.
Oh,
because that's we can call him George, or we can call him not so George Snowman.
Okay, gotcha.
See, I was actually out thinking my normal self.
I see, but see, I didn't know the rest of the reference, so it didn't help me because I was expecting you to say and make him our best friend.
Because I mean, I think we've out of the 300 some episodes, like 200 and some have that reference in there, I believe.
I think it's more like 4, maybe 5.
more like 400 times has been referenced.
Like 4, maybe 4 references.
Okay. Oh, all right. 4 is better than 400.
All right. So it's a build episode. It's been a while since we've had a build episode.
Yes, it is. I'm going to start recording now just in case you have issues.
Yeah, that's fine.
Whatever.
I mean, do it.
Screw it.
We'll have lost the intro and have to re-record the intro, but that's fine. I'll work around it. Yeah.
Okay, but you have the recording anyway. So welcome to another professional edition of the World Builders Anvil, brought to you by coal. Blue anthracite coal.
Yeah, we're recording. We're good. Cole,
you were recording.
Us? I am recording.
Yes.
I'm not editing any of this out.
This is gold.
This is all gold.
As we've learned, we'll never find it again, so it's gold.
Yeah, leave it in. So, okay. So, Jeff shot me the show notes a few minutes ago, and I'm looking at them. I'm going, Jeff, these are from the other. These are from the prior episode, like two episodes ago. So, if you guys remember, just a couple episodes ago, we were talking about the 5 contacts to a world. We're going to go through that again because we're actually going to build. We're going to start building a new world right now, and we're going to use that process.
This is going to be a somewhat free and open source world. This
would be the top-down approach.
The correct
as opposed to the better approach, which is the bottoms-up approach. Which
is the wrong approach. But the beautiful thing is, as a free and open source world, people can take it, they can fork it, and do whatever the fork they want with it. So I don't even know if we can call it free and open source because I think there's a license attached to that. There's really no license for that. This is free to steal.
License to free and open?
People use like creative licenses. There's licenses to actually professionally do this stuff. This is being unprofessionally shared is what I'm saying.
Oh, okay. I get you.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about the 5 contacts, but then we're going to actually come up with something because we're creating this world. And some of this is going to be a little bit more difficult. And I'm going to have to caveat that if people are actually interested in collaborating on this, that just contact me.
Yeah, we'll make it work. We don't have to make it
and some of the stuff is actually open to interpretation. So this is the rough draft, but this is kind of the idea, right? So determining your frame is the first contract, right? You're trying to determine where you want to make a picture of. And that's really hazy, right? For me, I love exploring medieval fantasy, but I do that a lot. So maybe I don't want to do medieval fantasy. Maybe I want to do something later. I don't know if Michael was actually involved in this campaign. I did a very short, I think it was actually only one session, and then basically everyone's work life destroyed it. It was a Gunsmoke fantasy set in my world Gardul in a different time frame. We're not going to use Gardul for this, but I'm kind of thinking I like that time frame.
Look, I love that time.
Westerns are interesting.
No. I mean the fantasy, like the medieval fantasy. I'm obviously a huge.
We can go back to that too, and this is what's interesting too, right? And it depends on where we end up with the world, shape and size wise, is potentially different islands. Probably not that far apart.
Well, are we going to go with what we had talked about in a prior episode where we were talking about the ringed island world?
well, not say even a ringed island world, but an archipelago style world where there's no big land masses, so you can't just, steal up all the resources and easily take over. It'll be a smaller. We could do that. I don't want to do a step style world because that would be kind of like recreating Gardul with a different skin.
Let's and you know what?
We could do a continent world though. That would be fine.
Well,
we could do one of those sort of generic fantasy like continent kind of showing on the map worlds too.
All right, I'm thinking let's not do medieval fantasy, and let me tell you why.
Yeah,
I think that we would probably fall into our easy strengths and fallbacks.
Yeah.
So I think we challenge ourselves and do something we like never do.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Western is good, but I mean, do you want to push it and go spacefaring, or do you want to?
I don't want to do spacefaring.
I don't want to do spacefaring because that gets you away from the world.
It gets us away from the world, and then it's like multiple worlds.
But
as the world itself,
we could do advanced technology,
it.
though. We could do very advanced technology, though.
I don't want to do very advanced technology. I've done cyberpunk. I like cyberpunk setting. But once again, you start pushing the realm of when do you leave the planet? Good goodness, my eyes are very glary right now.
Yeah, I see that.
I don't know what's going on.
Maybe there is, maybe, look, we both like magics. Maybe there's a magic reason that you can't leave the planet, i.e. like a space maelstrom.
So you kind of want a shadow run kind of thing.
I'm not saying I want one or the other. What I'm saying is that maybe we purposefully avoid medieval fantasy because it's something we're both so familiar with. Maybe we challenge ourselves by doing something different. I like
the idea of Western style technology, but not in a desert setting world. Okay.
So we want to go with like a black powder era technology level, like turn of the century, industrial revolution,
and pre-industrial revolution.
So steam engine.
Steam engines are definitely around.
Okay.
Steam is a thing, but not much beyond that. So, and right now, for those of you who are paying attention, we're kind of jumping around between the contacts right now because this is really, we're building a world and we don't know where it's going. So we're not really focusing on the contacts yet. We could create a map at this point. We could just kind of talk about determining a time frame that we want to talk about. Helps with the frame, but it also kind of helps start your rule session off, like what differentiates it. So that's like we've talked about the first three contacts, pretty hardcore so far.
Okay, so let's go back. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. So define the first one, the first contact.
So the first contact is determining the frame. How reusable do you want it, and what's the mission? And we know the mission, I guess. The mission is a free and shareable world.
But
I don't think there's going to be any official licensing to it, but there might be. I talked about something like this with Derek from Season GM before, and it kind of fell through. So I'll have to contact him and see if he wants to do something with this or whatever. I'm just kind of doing this for fun, and it kind of fits with what we're talking about. So
now I want you to be a little clearer with determine your frame, the area you want to explore. So when you say
that's going to be difficult here.
Do you mean the physical area, or do you mean like intellectually what you want to be working with as a concept?
Really, at this point, when I talk about frames, it's usually like where do you want the story to be set at? And I don't know if we can really determine that today, because we're talking about a little bit different style of world building, where there's going to be different. Everyone who gives to it is going to have their own frame that they're going to have to choose. So I'm going to say up to user.
Well, all right,
but we'll talk about ours.
Well, that's what I was going to say. We'll leave everybody else's contribution to after. We're trying to like show an example of. So let's just pick a frame. And we'll run with that for now, because this is an example of.
I kind of like the idea of a frame where there's a couple ideas we could run with here. We could run with an island that is smaller and they're maybe less technologically advanced. So it's sort of like the English show up to Hawaii.
I was going to say some sort of like Polynesian concept.
And not necessarily culturally, but the idea where you have this Stone Age merging on civilization, meeting someone who is well established into advanced firearms and cannons and that kind of stuff, but they're not necessarily close to their home either. So sort of.
So are you saying like our frame will be built through the perspective of the Islanders or the invaders, assuming there will be invaders?
Well, and I kind of want to determine with you, you could go the other way too, where there's a mass horde of people who are lower tech, who are flooding your smaller but more advanced island. And that would be sort of a reverse of typical colonialism,
I kind of like that idea.
I kind of like that. So, I think we've had a lot of colonial style stories from the other perspective. Let's kind of flip it on the head where, our frame is going to be about a small island, a small advanced island. So they'll probably maybe be a little bit higher tech level. And these other people, I think, are going to be like literally like Stone Age, maybe Bronze Age or Iron Age kind of peoples invading them, but it's numbers versus technology.
Yeah. So you might have that versus steel and maybe black powder.
Yeah. A small advanced island.
Now, does this world have actually? Let me go in order. I have a great question, but I want to keep things in order. So, does that work for you to cover number one?
Yes.
Okay. So, second contact is the basics. Fill in the nouns. 2.0.
Okay. So, if you go to the show notes here, there'll be a link. I've actually kind of redone my before I had people, places, or our faces, places, and mine is it's slightly changed, but not much. And the idea is, and this one will have a bunch of questions attached to each section to get you to think about each thing in multiple ways. But so here's what I want to use for my nouns: places. And there are going to be both natural and created. So like man-made or alien-made or whatever, or natural like the Great Barrier Reef. Now, there's also people. For me, that's like cultures, races are kind of in there. Cultures, characters, and religions, and kind of like culture to religion, religion to culture is kind of a chicken to the egg concept. I kind of think religions come out of cultures, but that's maybe my viewing. But so it's like places, people, things, rules, and others. So rules are going to be important, and kind of we're going to focus mostly here.
Okay.
I don't have any places made up yet in my mind.
Are we going to try to get through all 5 in this episode?
We're not going to probably have time to go through all 5.
Okay.
The most important thing is we need to start with the rules and the things that differentiate the world.
Okay.
And
I was going to say we could speed through some of this stuff, but we're going to have to take good notes.
Yeah, and the thing is, I don't necessarily want to rush through all of this stuff because we can spend an episode going a little bit more into detail for places and people and things and other. Now that we have a bit of an establishment of what we're doing and a frame, which I didn't have going into this episode.
So I'm going to say right now that this is part 1 of a small series.
This is part 1 of a small series, I think, yeah. But I think this is really important because this is kind of taking what we've done in the first 7 episodes. And you're going to come out with me with ideas like there's this one thing I love or a character definitely. Idea I have. Yep. And we're going to have to negotiate. Yeah. And I'll be right. And we'll just do what I want to ultimately.
We'll see about that.
But I do kind of want to talk a little bit about, but those are like my kind of base nouns. Then inside of there, I have more nouns and some questions. If you want it, go to garduel.com/podcast, I guess. Go to the show notes for season 2, episode 9 to be sure. And there'll be a link to where you can get this download.
All right. So if we're not going to be able to come up with all of our proper nouns for all these new things, let's at the very least define the things that we know we are going to be naming. So we know we're going to be naming the smaller island. And I'm saying all this stuff, but I'm expecting you to type it.
Yeah.
We need to name the bigger invading territory. I'm going to use that word because maybe it's an island, maybe it's something. We're going to need to name these two peoples, species. Shall I slow down? Shall I continue and speed up?
I'll say the two peoples.
The two
if
peoples.
That's true, it could end up being more than that, but we know there's going to be two.
But I'm saying for basics, for starters, we know we want at least two.
We know we need a smaller island, invaders, and two peoples.
Yes.
There could be religions. We don't care about that right
We'll get to that. Yeah. We'll get to that. That's coming. Mm-hmm. We know I still want magic. I don't know if you do.
Yes, of course I want magic.
Okay. Yes, of course I want magic. Okay, so we know we want magic.
We could be going into space and there'd be midichlorians or something.
Of course there's midichlorians. My desire is that there be more than one way to skin a cat when it comes to magic. I would like there to be.
Yes, and I think we both were very intrigued with different styles of magic. So
so
we're going to say two magic types.
At least say 2+ because we know.
Well, I'm just saying 2. That's not a limitation to us. That's sort of the minimum.
Okay. All right. The map is
we need to know geography.
Yes, I was just going to say. Yeah, the map is all.
At least of the smaller island. And see, here's the thing, and this will be kind of determined as we go on. We don't know if we're going to know more than where the bad guys are coming from. But we're going to need to know the small island, at least.
My thought if they're going to have black powder technology, there's going to be a volcano.
Okay.
Because they're going to need some chemicals that, unless you want to make black powder be a magic thing, or like if they're going to make black powder the way we make it on Earth, then they're going to need some things that volcanoes.
Well, I understand what you're saying. We need the chemically materials in place. And like I said, I don't know if we're going to go quite all the way up to Western. It might be a little bit more swashbuckling or, maybe early conquistador times kind of stuff where.
Yeah, I'm not thinking like 6-shooter. I'm thinking like musket style. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the very early stages of black powder. Like maybe not even handheld, maybe just cannon style stuff.
Early gunpowder, I'll say.
Yeah. Well, maybe some blunderbuss.
Because six shooters feeling wrong for this. Just because if you have 6 shooters versus guys with clubs, you start getting cased ammo that doesn't have issues when it gets wet, you're in trouble.
yeah, that's pretty much a slaughter at that point. Unless there becomes a material limitation. Like, oh yeah, we can make that, but it takes us a long time or like we have to save those.
And you have fairly sophisticated people, but like ask the whirling dervishers, you start getting into cased ammo versus swords. Not a chance. It's not a chance. So here there's still a chance. So it could be like Ottoman versus non-Ottoman kind of technology, but we'll get there. But I definitely think earlier gunpowder.
Well,
I do like some handheld guns. Are definitely more.
Well, the other argument is yes, you can have black powder, but magic is the great leveler. So you could say, okay, well, they have black powder. It's like, so what? I can fire an arrow 3 miles because it's enchanted. You know what I mean? So there is a level.
We're going to say early gunpowder, but we're going to leave that open. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
Okay. I know that's going to be a weird edit. I'm just going to acknowledge it, guys. I had a technical difficulty, so let's get back to the conversation. I know that was probably very abrupt on your end, but it's been minutes for us.
Yes.
So we were talking about black powder and conquistador type stuff, and we're still identifying things that we need.
Yep. Or that we know we need. Because this is definitely probably the most important first step is what do you know you need? And then always sit back and look back to your frame and go, do I really need anything else? Or do I need it yet?
Or what do I need after these things?
Or what do I need after? Thing wise, we know we need boats or transportation. I'm going to say.
I would like the non-technologically advanced race to ride sharks that can also walk on land briefly.
The sharks or
the sharks. The sharks can go on land, but briefly. Like they,
Kind of like the old land whale things.
Like they can hold their breath, or
kind of like the reverse of an alligator.
Kind of, yeah. But like they can't go. It's not like they can just be like, oh, it's my sharks now on land, and I can just take over your island because of my. No, the sharks can go on. They can go on land for like a minute or two.
So kind of like when an orca will beach itself to eat something.
I was going to say, think of it like a landing, like a lander, like a beach lander. So it can be a terror on the beach for like a minute while you're getting off, and then it's got to get back in the water.
Very good. I'm not buying that one right now, but
I insist.
I'm just listening.
Start negotiating.
I'm just saying transportation at this point.
Fair enough.
Especially in islands, right?
Right.
So besides,
I want submarines that walk on the bottom of the ocean. Oh, we did that in Guard Duel. We can't do that.
We already did that. That was pretty fun, though.
That was really fun.
Go back to our gnome episode was a lot.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, even when you started this, I was like, this immediately makes me think of the gnomes. So go back to the gnome episode, and it's way back in last season.
So just re-listen to the last season. And,
listen to last season. You'll hear it's 340 episodes. Somewhere in there we talk about gnomes. Yeah, it's a good one.
We can't Google.
Well, it wasn't only us creating gnomes, though. It was us creating a vehicle. That was, I think, it was a build episode. It was a build episode about a vehicle. It might have been
done a couple on that.
It might have been tied to the gnome episode because, of course, it was the gnome's vehicle.
It might have been like we had so much fun we wanted to do the.
I think
vehicle.
we did. So
I do remember like it would. They had like little roads, like they would put spears up. It was kind of,
I was talking about injectable napalm.
Oh yeah.
For boat sinking. It's all about boats.
Okay. So a natural, you talk about ocean stuff. You need some reefs, and that will hurt someone. That'll be a problem.
Now, how do we feel? Do you want to discuss at all the race's perspective on their natural surroundings? Like, are these a people that are like, well, yes, we know that a balance needs to be maintained between us and the reef because our life comes from the reef?
I don't think we need to settle that now.
Okay.
But that could definitely come up. I mean,
that will definitely come up.
There could be a reason they're primitive. It might be by choice. We don't know yet. We could, and we can conjecture a little bit, but I'd rather, we're trying to get an idea of stuff. Let it ruminate.
Yeah, let it percolate. I don't want to. I don't want to start distracting you with minutia style questions because I know that is what I will lean to doing.
Yeah.
All right. So what's our next thing?
Let's see. So we need a map. I'm going to auto generate one here. And
can you give it the limitation of I want islands around the equator?
Here, I want to share my screen so you can see how cool this is, and hopefully that will tease people to want to actually look at it.
Yeah, I can describe it.
Video. Okay, right. So right now this is a Wonder Draft, and I'm going to go to Archipelago.
Now, what does that mean?
That's an island chain.
Okay.
So essentially, the world will be a series of islands. So if you do uniform and you generate, it will be kind of like that.
Oh wow. Can you zoom out so I can get a better look at that? So Jeff just literally
the world. That's
the whole thing.
That's the whole thing.
So Jeff literally just clicked a button and it generated two large continents and a pretty large island in the middle between the two. You
could do a continent style world.
And now we have a relatively Pangean continent with a pretty large island off to the right and a very, very small island off to the left. But what I'm thinking is
world.
I love it. This is literally clicks of a button. He is changing very small.
Wonder Draft is very cool if you don't know where you want to start. And you can keep, I could just regenerate the same thing and it will come up with something different.
Wonder Draft. This is Tabula
This is an inexpensive
Rasa?
mapping software.
Okay. We're getting closer with that, but I still.
Let's go to Archipelago.
I don't want them also spread out. I kind of want them more linear. That's not bad though. Go 3 more at a max. That's not bad, but too tight. One second.
Remember,
one.
I can't undo these.
I know you can't. All right, one more time. That one's not bad, but one more. All right, one more. All right, that's it. That's what it's going to be.
So I'm going to go up to menu, Save as.
This is so cool. So literally with very few clicks of a button, Jeff has just generated a world map.
Now this map does not have like any kind of symbols on it, so it does not. We have a feeling we kind of know what's going to be on them based off of islands on Earth, but you have more tropical islands here in the middle. Not going to be a lot of room for desert, because there probably won't be the giant mountain chains to block off the moisture from.
All right. So for the sake of isolation and dealing with things, I say the island in the upper left. So if you want to move that cursor, not that one, the one below it, I think that one is the one we're talking about. And the one to the right is the invading force. Because look at all the resources.
And maybe there's a series of, and we might move this around a little bit later on because I kind of don't want it to be quite that close.
I was going to say I'd like something a little further apart, but I still feel like it needs to be
good. But the problem with that idea is
far.
It's so far.
Yeah.
So it might be like we end up, because I can actually use these tools down here to add and subtract.
Can you just grab that landmass and slide that landmass a little further out to sea? Is that a quick and easy step?
I'm not that familiar with this tool. I'm just going to save as new world.
So here's what I'm going to tell you guys. There's all these cool settings, and with very few clickety clicks, Jeff has generated the world map. So essentially, if creating a world map is not something that
in the landmass,
if that's not really the thing that you want to be doing, you want to be more creating your story, your characters, your cultures, this is a great tool.
And this tool is kind of cool because it's in between where I could sculpt all the land if I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
And later on, I'm going to have to go in and add symbols and stuff like that on there. But that's okay. That's cool. I like doing that kind of stuff. But this will get you started pretty quick. And then
that was very quick. We have a world here.
It'll be a lot of fun. So yeah, but these are our islands. These aren't meant to be huge. That island I definitely like because it's much bigger. And you have kind of like this chain here, and these guys could even probably dominate some of these other islands too, right?
All right. So this is great for you and I, but for the listener, this is not helpful.
This is really a pretty useless thing. I'm going to stop talking about the map.
Exactly. So we've got the map. What's our next step? There will also
be a link to that on the show notes as well too.
Yeah, you guys want to check this out. This is some neat software. And you said is this a free software or an inexpensive software? Inexpensive software for map generation.
I use Campaign Calligrapher, and they have one called Fractal Terrains where you can create literally a planet in the time I just did this. And it'll have weather patterns. It will have ocean currents. It's really amazing.
Yeah. So to be clear, this world map is rectangular. It's not.
Yes.
It doesn't accurately represent a spherical world.
No, but I don't care. But Fractal Terrains for Campaign Calligrapher will. So I'll probably leave a link to that in there too. And that's not too expensive either. But if you want to do the more advanced mapping, you need Campaign Calligrapher, which it becomes pretty damn expensive. But I love it. So it's good stuff too. But this worked for our purposes today. Now we know the first contact we're done with. The second contact, the nouns we talked about. The third contact, which is where we're dealing with now, we're identifying the needs that we know we need. And and a map. And really our fourth contact is the foundation, 3 points of reference. So for us, it's going to be the advanced island.
The what? Advanced island?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The
fact that it's an island world, I think, is kind of 1 point of reference, no? Or at least that pretty much all of these cultures are going to be seafaring cultures.
Definitely.
Like you might there's one island here that's kind of large. Like you might get some people in the middle there that just chill out on the island. But I think all these people are going to be at the very least island, like on the coast. My thought is majority of their food is going to be coming from the ocean, not the land.
Yes. And so the ocean, the currents, the reefs are important for food.
Exactly.
So islands invade, but the advanced island, the invaders, and the third point would just be I do agree it's a sea world, right? So there's porpoises and
water world, some might say.
No one would say that. The name's been ruined. We have no working name for it, but now we're ready to press the thing and start.
Oh, my name works pretty well.
Through very quickly, the fifth one is you just start. So we kind of got up to there, and we're going to start. We're going to call this Open World. That is a working title. So let us know what you think of the title. It was my other thought would be Michael Lamia, but probably not. So we'll sit there and go. It's ready to kind of go from there. We have all the basic ideas set, and now it's about constructing things. And the neat thing is someone else could come in and they go, you know what, there's some other islands down here, and maybe I want to talk about the story of those islands, or maybe I want to talk about the same spot you are, but what's the ramifications 2,000 years later.
Can you go back to the chat view so I can stop seeing this?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I just want to get back to the list, so I want to make sure we're.
You want to see my pretty face?
I want to cover. Well, I could still see you. I just want to cover, make sure we're covering all of our bases.
Yeah. Well, we're up through our fifth contact at this point, so.
Yeah, but we're not ready to launch the project, so.
Oh, yes, we are.
Are we?
Done. That's it, right?
That's it. That's it. We've launched our project.
It.
Our project's been launched.
Our project's been launched. It took probably 5 minutes. We spent maybe 3 hours on it, but it really only took 5 minutes of effort.
Yeah.
And the thing I really want to stress in this is, at the beginning, you're going to lie to yourself and make it much more complicated than it needs to be.
I'm sorry. Say that again, because I totally talked over you.
At the beginning, you're going to make this a lot more complicated than it needs to be because you have some passion behind your ideas. And so you're going to think it's so hard to start. If you have trouble starting your world builds, it's because you're letting yourself get in the way. And you probably overcomplicate it. Keep it simple. You're not going to have every detail done. Like if you started at the top and said, I'm not going to move down past the nouns until I have every noun I want to possibly discuss listed, you're never going to get started. If you're going to get to your needs and sit there and go, well, I have all of these other islands and I need cultures and languages and all kinds of things on everything, you're never going to get started. You'll never get through the process. So for mine, if you use the 5 contacts, it's simple. It should take you 5 minutes to a half hour, a little bit more if you're going to spend a little bit more time mapping. You can flesh out your map more, definitely, but you don't need to, because we have an idea. It's a sea world. We know there's not going to be desert people. There will be no desert icons anywhere on here. There will be no steps. Everything will have an abundance of moisture. One of the gunpowder issues is going to be early gunpowder uses like flintlocks, right? If they get wet, they suck. So maybe there's a different way they have to figure out how to do it. But we'll worry about that when we get to it. It's like that's a bridge for another day.
Yep. All right. So are you ready for me to close it down?
Yeah.
All right. So world builder task for the day is pretty simple. Start a new world or a new time period in the world you already have.
Yeah, and that's where we'll talk about like evolving a world, right? So it's like I have a world I've played in early Iron Age, late medieval, gunpowder, and space age, all in the same game world. But it's kind of like going, you kind of fast forward it from where you have the detail till the next spot and go, do the things stay the same? I like things breaking apart and reforming and rechanging. Even though ironically in Gardul didn't really work out that way, which is kind of funny. But just make stuff up. That's really world building. It's just really making stuff up and then going, does it pass a smell test? Will it pass the smell test of the people when they look at it through the frame? And if it's not through the frame, it shouldn't.
I want to acknowledge the irony of how good of a statement that is. Will it pass the smell test? Because the olfactory sense is the only one of our 5 senses that has a hard lined wire right to your memory. So if you've ever had the experience, and everybody has, where you smell something and boom, it brings back a memory. Like you walk into some place and like, oh my gosh, this smells just like my grandmother's house. Or, oh my gosh, that reminds, this dessert is just like this dessert that my friend used to make. Or you smell a weird smell and you're like, oh my gosh, this is just like this place that I worked at when I was like 14 years old. And it brings back vivid memories. So I love that you say the smell test as opposed to microscope. Your worlds don't need to go under a microscope. You don't need to make them so detailed that you know exactly what everything is. Because as we've said many times, you can't recreate the world and every detail of every time period. There's not enough time in your lifetime to do that. So have it just pass the smell test. Have it just invoke a feeling or a memory. Have it be just familiar enough and just detailed enough that you're going to be able to pass along that great experience to someone else.
I know it's like when we talked to Tim Bannock, and he was talking about the world building him and Matt did for the module that they were making. He was talking about this old school idea in RPGs of, world building, through subtraction. And it's so when you create a module, you want to have elements on the map, especially that are named places or these things that are really intriguing visually, but they will not talk about it all or a very small reference to, but it's things to get the other people's imaginations into it, because those are the points where they start buying into the world. It's like when I'm reading, when I was going through like the Wheel of Time, the 14 books of the Wheel of Time or whatever, the reason the world building worked is he goes into a lot of detail in his world, but there are other things where they just get mentioned or said, and then your imagination fills in, and later on you end up going to the place, and then you start, it helps speed you in, like you want to read it more because you're like, okay, Wheel of Time, they're finally going to get to Tarvalin, which is a very important place. Early on, you hear about like this mythical location of Tarvalin, and then when they finally, like they're going to get there at this book, or you think they're going to, then you get really excited because it's like you want to get the actuality because your brain has already started making up stuff about it, and that forces you deeper and quicker into the story, and that's where genre fiction is so strong. Is if you can find that balance of detail versus
lack of
detail, that's what really gets people invested in learning more. And then you turn to Star Wars, where God knows how much people have created for Star Wars that will never be even known.
Yeah. You immediately remind me of Stardust, where the pirates, they're sky, like these sky pirates, the ship flies.
Never heard of Stardust before.
Shut up. And they're bottling lightning. And you're like, okay, that's cool. They're literally capturing lightning. They're capturing lightning with these big nets, the way a person might throw a net out to catch fish. And they catch the two main characters because they're trapped in the sky. And then when they pull them aboard, they're like, who are these two? And they're like, they're probably lightning marshals. Well, they don't look like lightning marshals. And they don't say anything else about it. You're like, what is a lightning marshal? And you get the implication that what they're doing is illegal and that there's lightning marshals. So that means there's a governing body that's after these pirates that are bottling lightning. And you're like, what's that all about?
They're pirates, right?
What's that?
And that's your first thought, that they're really pirates, where it's like,
oh yeah, marshals. They could have been fishermen a moment ago, but when they got all edgy that these could be an authority figure, you get the idea.
In English, you think of as law enforcement.
Yeah,
not as common as a sheriff, but still, it's something
constable,
evokes, especially in America. It'll invoke that. So I think it's that's brilliant world building right there by I don't know whoever did that.
And they never mention them again in the movie. Like that's it. Just that quick little like 2 or 3 sentence exchange, and you're like, for me, and of course I'm an electrician, so of course I'm enamored with the concept of a lightning marshal. I refer to myself as a lightning marshal sometimes. So I'm like, what do you do for a living? I'm a lightning marshal.
And
but like, what a neat term that just has my imagination spinning because of its lack of detail. They gave it a proper noun. They gave it a name. They gave it a noun. but nothing more than like 2 or 3 sentences in an exchange that just implies things. Everything else is in my head.
Yeah.
He didn't create anything else.
And later on, if you would go back and like to the Sky Marshal thing, that there's always a risk in doing that where it could ruin the story for Michael. But sometimes though, it's like for me, like knowing you're going somewhere and when you get there, it's like on the trip to Mordor, you're excited to figure out what the heck Mordor is like. Mm-hmm. So there's certain things that it works for. And I think sometimes people screw it up where it's like, I think this is kind of one of the ways Star Wars has gone wrong recently is it's like they feel like the need to explain every little detail, like the dice in the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah, who cares?
I mean, it was cool. And you're like, oh, there's dice. That's really cool. That's a connection to me, right? I can make stuff up. I don't need to know that really.
Yeah.
I don't need to know that someone gave Han Solo his pistol. No crap. I kind of figured that he either bought it or he stole it or he got it somehow.
Yeah. The pistol doesn't need its own backstory.
Doesn't need a backstory.
Yeah.
So yeah, sometimes, you can actually take away from your world building when you go too far.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of the things that hurt the more modern Star Wars is sometimes they go too far in describing things that people have especially Star Wars is so sentimental and people have so powerful opinions about it. You can't do it right. So when it's unimportant, let it
let it be what it is.
People can always conjecture and talk about it, and that gets you more internet talk. Okay. And so now for the real world task. Learn to hang out while social distancing. This one is just coming up because as we're approaching winter, it kind of sucks again. The numbers are going horrific, not only in the US, but everywhere. I heard someone refer to it. It's like March all over again, with the one minor caveat that this time COVID is in every community already. So it won't just spread in places like New York City this time. It will be everywhere. And that's why our numbers are much larger right now. So be careful, be healthy. There's an article I'm sharing. I think they're a nonprofit trying to get you to give them money, but whatever. I don't know much about the company, but they had a pretty good list. Caring Bridge had a list of different advice, and some was pretty cool. Like, you know what? Do favors for your neighbors. You have those neighbors, it gets the winter time, and they don't have a snowblower. You can snowblow their driveway. Like, hey, I'll take care of this for you, and maybe they'll talk to you from the porch. So you can still interact with humans because that is important for humans. We need human contact. It's a catch-22 situation. So be healthy, but try and interact with humans as you can. And I love you all deeply from the subcockles of my heart.
Maybe for me, it might be below the subcockles, below the cockles, the subcockle area, maybe the liver, maybe the kidneys.
Oh wow, that's maybe, a pretty good memory.
Maybe even the colon. We don't know.
Wow, that was like dead on. Wow,
I listened to that album many, many times.
So have I, but I'm impressed though. That's good job.
All right, so to tack on to your real world task, go listen to Dennis Leary, No Cure for Cancer. Great album.
Great album.
All right, bye guys.
Have a great week. Thank you so much for listening to the World Builders Anvil.
We would love it if you would share the World Builders Anvil with 2 of your friends.
And so would they.
If they are unfamiliar with podcasts, then you get to introduce them to the wonderful world of podcasting.
Take them to Stitcher or iTunes, or best of all, just send them to our website, www.garduel.com.
That's GARDUL.com.
Now strike while the mithril's hot.